All eyes on the U.S. Supreme Court as we await a critical decision that could determine the future of Obamacare. If the court issues a ruling that would end government assistance to people in the 34 states that do not have their own health care exchanges, millions could lose their insurance. And if so, what then?
To help underwrite the cost of mandatory health insurance will be struck down based on language which says the subsidies are available in states that set up their own health care exchanges. Yet dozens of them chose not to.
Is that if those subsidies are removed in those 34 states, millions of people will pay more. A lot more.
The Supreme Court does do that because then millions of people who now enjoy health care will be thrown off health care.
Is the Obama administration ready? Does it have a plan B for the almost 8 million impacted? Nope. And worse, apparently the Obama administration could not be bothered.
For people to understand that there is no contingency plan that could be implemented that would.
Hello, I'm Dr. Bill Cassidy. I suspect Tom has already introduced me as a physician who has been caring for the uninsured. Now let me say that the profession of medicine is a noble profession, and we are here with the patient as a centerpiece of our concern. I've tried to bring that perspective as a physician to the Senate, first to Congress, then to Senate, and keeping the patient as a center of concern. Now, you've just seen a video clip about the King v. Burwell decision that is expected to be announced at the end of June. And as the video clip showed, the administration says they do not have a plan in case the Supreme Court rules against the administration. That is to say that there are 8 million patients who currently rely upon subsidies to buy insurance to be sure, which is far more expensive because of Obamacare regulations, but because it is so much more expensive, they require the subsidy. Those 8 million people, some of whom will be in the middle of chemotherapy for breast cancer or some other significant illness, will be at risk of losing their coverage. Now, as physicians, for those who care about patients first and politics second, that is of first concern. So the remainder of this presentation will be a Republican response. Ralph Abraham, who's a physician on the House of Representatives, and I are introducing it together. But I would like to say it is a physician's response to what would we do to hold those patients harmless. And so with that, we'll go through this video, this PowerPoint presentation. You're seeing now the title slide, and there is our elevator speech. We give patients the power, not a bureaucrat, the patient. And we do this by lowering cost, and we lower cost by returning power over the insurance market to the states, with the rationale that those who govern best are those who rule closest to those who are governed. And by giving the states the power over insurance, we expect that insurance product will be more to the patient's interest as opposed to an Obamacare bureaucrat's prejudice. And lastly, we give patients the power through knowledge. We give them the power of portability, the power if they have a pre-existing condition, they'll still be covered. And then lastly, the power of price transparency, so that if a CT scan is ordered, the patient knows what it will cost before she goes in for the procedure as opposed to afterwards. Now, let's just make a case. Some would say we should do nothing. We should just wait until the Supreme Court rules and then hope for the best. But doing nothing is not an option. And now I'm going to speak as a Republican. Republicans have campaigned in 3 separate cycles that we would replace Obamacare with something which is patient-centric as opposed to bureaucrat-centric. If the Supreme Court repeals a portion of Obamacare, we must complete that by having something to replace. Next, Republicans will be blamed by the president, and he will be quite effective in his communications, that 5 to 8 million people losing insurance are only losing their insurance because Republicans have not done what he expects us to do. He'll ignore the fact that the administration has illegally implemented the law and that they have driven up the insurance company's rates with their regulations. He'll ignore those. But he will effectively blame Republicans for this. We cannot sit idly by as that happens. And what the president will attempt to do is to coerce Congress into either making federal exchanges the same as state exchanges for the purposes of getting subsidies, or coerce governors into converting their federal exchange to a state exchange. There's a little bit of bitter irony with this. The states which have state exchanges, their state exchanges have run out of money, running deficits in the millions of dollars. So the president will be attempting to coerce states to adopt a business model which is failing. The other problematic thing about this is that the more states that do this, however, the more deeply rooted Obamacare will become. And what we've seen from the recent rate increases, where insurance companies are increasing their rates in some cases as much as 60% on the exchanges. 60%. In my own state, I think it's 25% or thereabouts. And this is upon previous rate increases since 2009 when Obamacare passed. We would be adopting a paradigm which is pricing insurance out of the ability for anybody to pay who is not getting the subsidy. The third option is to have a plan. And what I'm about to discuss is what we would consider the appropriate physician, if you will, patient-centric plan. So on this next slide, you're going to see a graph where King versus Burwell decision is on the left as you're looking at the slide. And it shows that under this plan, states have options. The three options they have, two of which are already present, is to first establish a state exchange, in which case the state continues on Obamacare. It takes root in that state and probably going to be difficult to get rid of. The third is the state can do nothing, can elect not to receive subsidies for those receiving subsidies, not to take a Medicaid expansion, but also not to have the penalties and mandates associated with Obamacare. This is a states' rights issue, and we think it's important that the state have that right to choose. And then the third is the choice that we will discuss now, which is what we call the Patient Freedom Act, a market-based reform. You're now looking at a slide which compares the Patient Freedom Act to Obamacare. I'll just stress some of the things we do. We lower costs by repealing mandates. We would repeal the individual mandate and the associated penalty. The employer mandate, associated penalty. We would return power over deciding what benefits must be included in insurance to the states, and would get rid of the federal essential health benefits mandates, that which is driving up the cost of insurance for those who are on the exchanges. Next slide, please. Now, the money that we use is depicted here. We assume that those who are in the state that were eligible for Obamacare would sign up for Obamacare. If a state has not signed up for Medicaid, we assume that those dollars that the state would receive if they did a Medicaid expansion are added to this, and this sum total is what we would then use to insure those in the state. Next slide. Now, there are some, not in this audience because you're aware of healthcare economics, but on this pie chart, you will see the answer to those who say that the federal government should not be in the business of providing health insurance. If you look at the orange tab, that is everyone who's receiving Medicare, Medicaid, VA benefits, CHIP, TRICARE, you name it. All that is in there, and that costs about $7,500 or $7,600 per person to the federal government. That bigger kind of almost half of the pie, blue portion, are those who are getting insurance through their employer, and because the federal tax code gives you a tax deduction for whatever you and your employer put toward your employer-sponsored insurance. That's costing the federal government about $1,700. That is one other way in which the federal government encourages and enables people to have insurance. That kind of gray slice, up in the left-hand corner as you look at the slide, those are those who are self-insured, uninsured, or currently on the Obamacare exchanges, and that's who this proposal relates to. Now, conservatives have always said we should equalize the tax treatment of those who get their insurance through their employer and those who buy it directly without the employer in between. We, in this proposal, embrace that conservative concern. We equalize that tax treatment, and we'll give a credit of about $1,500 to $1,600 to those who are in this gray-shaped area. In so doing, we lower their cost of insurance, but also embrace that conservative concern of equalizing the tax treatment between those getting their insurance through their employer and those who buy it directly.